Hi everyone, it's Sven and my good friend Cody Shirk, and we're trying something new today. We're in West Palm Beach, and Cody and I just did a dinner with readers talking about investing, and we decided that I absolutely need to do an update about investing in British Guyana, potentially the future richest country on the planet. And Cody happens to be, as I call him, the Guyana guy.
The Guyana guy, that's quite the title.
Because he's been down there multiple times over a number of years. He's met the president. He's looked at this from an investment angle very, very carefully and in detail. And if you don't know Cody, he's been, in a way, I could say my American alter ego, Mr. International Investor.
Yeah, you said brother from another mother.
Yeah.
The American version of Swen from, I don't know, I always think that you're like more American than many Americans, so.
And so we're just heading down south here on the beach. If we kept walking for, I guess, 2 hours, we'd get to Mar-a-Lago.
I think, actually, no, we're pretty close. That would take us about maybe 45 minutes. So we're pretty close.
If we bump into Elon, I'll give him some advice on how to cut down government expenditure based on the model of SARK. But that's not the subject today. We want to speak about Guyana. And since not everyone knows about Guyana and its unique situation, I think you should hop in here and give us a bit of a download about what's been happening in Guyana, why is it special, and yeah, give us the summary.
Let's do it. All right, so Guyana, first of all, is in South America. A lot of people think it's in Africa. It is the only English-speaking country in South America. So if you're an investor or somebody who's thinking, why is this relevant to me? This is a country that has a language that you understand, because if you understand me, then you understand what they're saying in Guyana. It is the fastest growing economy in the world, not by a little bit, but by a lot. There's double-digit growth for the past 3 or 4 years, and I'm not saying like 10%, we're talking 20, 30% growth year over year, and that's because they discovered a ton of oil offshore. And that oil that was discovered offshore is a big discovery, probably one of the biggest discoveries over the past, I'd say, several decades worldwide. But it's particularly important because Guyana, the country, only has 800,000 people. So the country is positioned to become very, very wealthy because of the GDP per capita is going to be pretty much double the wealthiest nation in the Middle East. So you can look at Dubai, UAE, Kuwait, look at any of those countries and think what happened to their economies there in terms of how they developed, and you can try and imagine what could happen in Guyana. Now, to be, take a real look at it, the country is very, very, let's say, immature in the sense that it's not highly developed. Almost all the population is in the capital of Georgetown. And the rest of the country is extremely resource rich beyond oil. They have gold, rare earth metals, bauxite, enormous amounts of jungle, and it's almost all untouched and most of it unreachable right now. And that's one of the big opportunities that I see outside of the oil industry is the ecotourism opportunity there. It is straight up Jurassic Park, amazing untouched nature. If you are a nature fan, you need to be booking your flight now to Guyana. So I hope that is a rough intro.
That makes sense. And I mean, speaking of the nature aspect there, that's how I first came across Guyana about 2007, because an old friend of mine was the director of some national park there, and he showed me photos, and he actually published a book about it, which is probably the coffee table book of Guyana, probably the only one and the best one. And I always wanted to travel there just out of curiosity and sort of for, as a tourist. And I remember once reading an article, probably a decade ago, in an English magazine or newspaper, how you couldn't actually really easily get there because there were no international flights. You had to go to Jamaica first or something like that, and then take sort of a regional Caribbean airline. So speak of remote and undiscovered, and that's obviously changed in the meantime.
Yeah, that's changed real quick to speak on that. There are several direct flights in the U.S. to Guyana right now, and from Texas, from Florida, from New York, even Toronto, and there's direct flight from the U.K. as well.
Wow.
And the direct flights from the U.S., it's interesting, there's visa upon arrival. Pretty much any passport you have, you can arrive there with no issue. And the flights from the US to Guyana direct is about 4 hours. So a very, let's say, a reachable country from a US perspective, and from the UK and Europe, also pretty reachable.
Yeah, same time zone, same language. So
Yep.
what more do you want? So how was it for you traveling there? I mean, give us some anecdotes or some impressions, and how does that compare to what you read in the mainstream media about Guyana? What you found, did that actually match what you expected, or was it all different?
Yeah, great question. So I would consider myself relatively well traveled, and I'm not going to comment too much on the safety level, but let's just say it's a country that you definitely want to be
Stupid.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be just aware of your surroundings when you're in the city of Georgetown. It is very much a let's call it like oil town city, in the sense that it has rapid growth right now. There are a lot of distortions in wealth levels right now, so there are the normal problems that you can assume. That said, once you step foot out of the city and go into the interior of the country, there's nobody. It's, I mean, literally, there's nobody around, and
you can't get anywhere.
And you can't get anywhere. There's very, very few roads.
Helicopters or
helicopters? So we chartered planes. You actually can't even take helicopters, because the helicopter pilots don't want to fly to the interior, because the jungle's so thick that there's no emergency landing areas. So we have chartered Cessnas, and there are little landing strips out in the middle of the jungle, and they're usually a little bit further than helicopters like to go.
I couldn't imagine why anyone would build landing strips in the jungle in South America. That's a mystery.
So, bizarre investing opportunity number one. They need people to go there to build more landing strips throughout the country. And if anybody's listening to this and knows an airport builder, I don't even know how they're going to get this done, because there's no roads to the destination, so you got to hike in and build a landing strip. That's one of their major challenges right now. But on a serious note, they are building a highway from the town of Georgetown to about halfway into the country. It's called Lethem, and that will connect part of the country, but it also borders with a town called Boa Vista in Brazil. And this will now open up Brazil to export agricultural products to the Atlantic Ocean. And this is a massive area of Brazil that has a huge agricultural production already. And that's, I'd say, a sub-story of the opportunity that's happening in Guyana right now.
Okay, so let's come to the investments and the economy and finance and all that sort of stuff. They found loads of oil. So oil and gas is the play that we're looking at. But there's probably, as you mentioned, something in ecotourism, and there's bound to be something in other commodities. So I was told already, like 2006 or whenever, there's loads of gold down there as well. It's just that no one has ever really done proper surveys. So where does the investment opportunity start?
So as far as like oil and gas, I'll just say the obvious, which most people probably assume. The major companies are down there. They've locked the industry down. Unless you're already a player there, you're not going to be able to go down there and break into the game. That said, from an investing perspective, ExxonMobil is by far the largest operator down there. And then you have a lot of picks and shovels plays like Tenaris, which they do pipes. So if you're trying to get like general exposure to the country, that would say those two companies in the oil and gas sector. Now, you can imagine with a massively growing economy that's, like I said, growing double digits every year, you have a lot of these picks and shovels plays. So transportation, food, accommodations, real estate, basically everything you need to build a big city and build a civilization. Those opportunities exist right now on the ground, but also via companies that are going in there to capture these contracts that Guyana has. And then the last thing I would say is the tourism opportunity and everything that's going on inside in the interior of the country. And we talked about earlier, they do have a stock exchange. It's called the GSE, creative name, Guyana Stock Exchange. And actually you did some research, I think 19 companies?
19 companies, and you've got banks, a distillery, a pawnbroker of all things.
I didn't know that, a pawnbroker?
Pawnbroker as a publicly listed company.
Okay.
And, I mean, you find them elsewhere, but it's a country of 745,000 people, so and there was a property company, and it's a good mixture.
Yeah.
I just don't know, obviously, liquidity and how do you trade, that's always the obvious question, but there's something to start with, and the website looks surprisingly good. I've seen worse websites of frontier stock exchanges.
Yeah, so I actually have a good friend who invested in the GSE, the Guyana Stock Exchange,
the exchange itself?
Yeah.
Ooh,
In 2019, he did it. He said, hey, give me the 6 most liquid stocks, or where you have the most volume, and I'll put, I don't know how much money he put in, but a meaningful amount for him. And he sold out of all of them a couple years ago and doubled his money on all of them. And I think that was the rising tide lifts all boats type things. But in terms of companies that are interesting domestically within that are traded on the stock exchange, I would say if you want exposure there, well, this is how you do it. You go to the GSE, the Guyana Stock Exchange website. They have several brokers in Guyana. You do not have to go there. You can register everything online, and they'll put you in touch with the broker. You get an account and all that. Of course, there's tons of paperwork, and it's the whole, go through the whole dog and pony show of the proving who you are and what you're doing and all that.
We should now say, kids, don't try this at home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or if you want to a test in your patience, this is a great activity. But it's interesting because, like I said, there's a very small population there, and the companies that are operating there are at capacity, meaning there's so much activity going on in the city because so much money is rushing in. The other thing that's really interesting is that the Guyanese government recently went to New York because there's the largest diaspora of basically people that have emigrated from Guyana to the U.S. There's the largest population in New York. And the reason why the Guyanese government went there is to bring them back. And they're trying to incentivize Guyanese to go back to Guyana because the government currently has over 100,000 open positions for employment. And that just goes to show you how much demand there is in the city right now to build things, to employ people, to grow things. And
And all backed up by basically unlimited funding, because that amount of oil spread among that few people gives you something like of a Kuwait, Qatar kind of situation, right?
So the arrangement that the government has is they take a certain percentage of oil profits, annual oil profits. I don't know the exact percentage, but the other part of it is that the oil companies have to reinvest back into the Guyanese economy. And for example, in 2022, Exxon had to invest $2 billion back into Guyana. They couldn't do it. They literally could not deploy that money because there was not enough infrastructure in terms of companies to able to actually execute on the projects that are there. They need foreign workers and foreign companies to come in and actually execute on the projects and infrastructure, initiatives that the government is trying to execute on right now.
And is there any particular oil and gas related stock that really sticks out as the Guyana opportunity, or is it all a bit of a mixed bag and difficult to say?
It's a great question. I wish there was. I wish there was this, Guyana oil or whatever.
Guyana Oil Company.
Exactly. The reality is Exxon really is the player there. Exxon is the largest publicly traded oil company in the world other than Saudi Aramco. So it's not really a clean play, but the oil that Exxon will be drilling from Guyana will be the number one source for Exxon going forward. So there's nowhere else in the world that Exxon's getting more oil from than Guyana.
Wow.
So it's probably the purest play from Exxon. I know it's not an exciting play, but that is one play. The other company I'd say is Tenaris, which I mentioned earlier. Very inexpensive right now. I'm not necessarily recommending it as a stock pick, but they have a 10-year contract for pipes with Exxon in Guyana. So those are probably the most obvious plays there.
And another big player down there is Hess Corporation, but they're being taken over and that's all stuck in court somehow.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but Hess is actually the company that first made some of the discoveries there. And they got into litigation with Hess, Chevron, and Exxon. Long story short, Exxon is the one who prevailed with all the rights to all this. They actually purchased a lot of the rights from Hess. Hess did an amazing job. If anybody wants to look at how to make billions of dollars, go look what Hess did back in mid 2015-ish. They actually, ironically, I think are getting back involved with this deal. And a side story to all of this is that Suriname, which is the country that's right next to Guyana, which is another country most people don't know about.
Was that French Guyana?
No, French Guyana is the country next to Suriname. And French Guyana is not even a country, it's actually a territory of France. But Suriname is another country that's probably 5 years behind Guyana in terms of oil discovery and in terms of investing opportunity. It's a little bit different because there's some other government issues going on there. But my point is that there are other oil explorers right now in Suriname. And I will not throw out any like oil numbers right now because literally almost every week they're discovering more oil and their projections are shifting. So I don't even know where they're at today, like this week. But let's just say they are actively finding more and more oil and gas offshore.
Okay, so clearly want to watch. It sounds like someone needs to set up a real estate fund for Guyana.
Yeah.
And just buy up stuff in Georgetown and maybe something in the hinterlands and
absolutely.
Sit on it.
I will say that the real estate is probably one of the biggest opportunities there. That's not to say there aren't a lot of players already there. One good example I'll give is that there are hundreds of oil workers there right now, hundreds, if not thousands, and there's really nowhere to house them. And these aren't just like, people literally drilling in oil. These are the executives and stuff. So they're building out golf courses and luxury homes and all these different types of developments, but there's really just not enough workers and infrastructure to get these things online right now. So you should be looking for construction companies operating down there and the opportunity to get a fund together, some sort of REIT, absolutely opportunity right now.
And I think another company that's operating down there is Total from France.
Yes.
But they're in the neighboring Guyana.
They're in
something
Suriname.
Okay.
And also, there's not much discovered in French Guyana yet, but if you look at where the oil is offshore, it's kind of like in a line. Kind of starts off Guyana and it's offshore and goes towards Suriname. And if you, just by looking at the map, you could probably assume they might find something off French Guyana as well soon. So
how is that possible with peak oil and we're running out of oil and all that stuff?
Yeah, right, exactly. And yeah, well, they're finding dinosaur bones everywhere. We're just going to burn more dinosaur bones as we find them. Swen, I mean, you know me and my thoughts on oil and all that. I think they're just going to continue to find more and more, especially as drilling technology increases. And you got to remember the drilling is not like a little bit offshore, it's way offshore. So the infrastructure that they have to actually extract the oil right now is it's unbelievable. And my bet would be that their ability to get oil from extremely deep water in rough conditions is only going to improve over time.
Okay. It makes me think that one should spend a bit more time looking at all of these different Latin American opportunities because they've fallen a bit off the radar. And given what's going on in Guyana and how relevant that is in terms of size and how unusual it is in terms of just the extraordinary upside that you get when you have basically unlimited amounts of money raining down on a small country. I think we're all not spending enough time on that.
Absolutely.
And it's quite difficult to access, but there must be easy opportunities down there as well.
Yeah, and I will also mention that, the U.S. wants oil security. The U.S. is currently pumping producing about 13 million barrels per day. The U.S. is currently the #1 producer of oil in the world, but they want partners that they can rely on. And the reality is that Guyana is relatively close to the U.S. compared to the Middle East. And I could see the U.S. to continue to distance itself from the Middle East and strengthen itself with Guyana. Guyana knows this, and they very much like having a big brother like the U.S., especially for security reasons with Venezuela next door. And for investors looking for like mismatch situations, Guyana is definitely one of those kind of under the radar opportunities. Of course, it's making it the news, but I don't think people realize how much oil is there, how much future opportunity is there, and how much investment from other countries is going there to ensure that Guyana can continue to get the oil out of the ground and export to other countries.
It's a big world out there, and there's a lot of stuff that has fallen off the radar and should be put back on the radar, which we're obviously working to do. And that's something we discussed at our dinner yesterday. So the reason why I'm in Palm Beach is we hosted a dinner for readers and personal friends, and there's usually readers who we meet become friends because they're all very nice people and interesting. And we got a presentation from you, and then also, around the table discussed a couple of subjects. And all I could say is that dinner alone gave me so many ideas that I could write stuff for my website for the next 6 months. So it was extraordinary in terms of the informational value coming out of it. It was also simply great fun because you took us to a great place, in a place called Jupiter, which is where, who lives there? Like Tiger Woods and
Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, I don't know, all the sports stars, and probably some names I probably shouldn't mention right now, but
yeah,
let's just say that everyone knows them. But you know, fill in the gap.
And you see how this is not a bad environment to be in, if a bit windy today.
Yeah, it is a little windy. It's freezing right now, right? What do we got? Like
that's what you say as
mid-70s.
Are you a Floridian? Is that the word, or?
My heart and soul's in California, but you know, California has lost me when it comes to where my brain's at. So Florida has been my home for several years now, and I gotta say this place is amazing.
And it's growing in by leaps and bounds.
It's expensive here, but I am very bullish Florida for quite some time, especially with the new U.S. administration. We are. Trump has not taken office yet, but you know, Swen and I have been hanging out for the past couple of days, and let's just say there's a magnet attracting a lot of power and wealth to this area right now that will probably continue here for the next several years.
The number of people I know who want to move to either the US or within the US to Florida is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a separate subject. Coming back to dinners and Guyana, so maybe just it's not a pitch, but just to mention it to readers. What we always do is we put together a bunch of people in a place, in a geographic, in a city. And the rule is basically everyone has to contribute to the dinner's costs. So we don't make money of it, but equally it's not like we're treating everyone to dinner. No sponsors. That's really so no one there is pitching.
And we aren't either, of course.
Nope. And we basically don't really have like professional advisors there. It's private investors, entrepreneurs. We always keep it fairly informal and open with regards to what we talk about, and it sort of just flows naturally. We're walking across a lot of shells here. And by the end of the evening, everyone leaves with like half a dozen new friends, usually, and we share around contact details. And we've come up with this idea or this plan. Next year we should do this even more often. We've been doing it irregularly, and I think we should institutionalize that a bit. So invites coming your way, and you should absolutely sign up to Cody's website, which is
CodyShirk.com.
Very easy to remember.
Yeah, very easy to remember.
And I've been working very hard in the last 24 hours to convince Cody or to make him understand just how good he is at writing LinkedIn posts. So everyone should follow him on LinkedIn as well.
Thank you.
And then put a bit of pressure on him to post more often, like 5 times a week. And there may be a Guyana trip coming down the pipeline.
I'm definitely going back down, and we'll see how many people want to join me. If anybody listening to this is curious at all, it's one of those trips that it's like a bucket list trip. You know, I can guarantee you 10 years from now, you're going to be thinking, dang, I should have gone down there. I'm curious. If you forget about the investing and the oil and all that, which on its own is a huge opportunity, and just think of the nature and wildlife, it is unbelievable. The world's largest waterfall is there. It's untouched jungle, amazing animals, all that. So if you are at all curious to go to a place that is probably not going to last like that forever, just because there's going to be tourism increasing there, you should go now. And
get that coffee table book while it's available. It's from a guy called Graham Watkins. I think it's called Rupununi something. Rupununi is the national park there. Great book in terms of getting you inspired to travel there. But I'm going to put you on the spot now for something else. And so earlier this year in June, I hosted the inaugural edition of the Weird Shit Investing Conference, which was an idea that we cooked up on an evening with readers in New York. And Cody, you attended the New York version. So I'm fishing for some compliments and a testimonial here. No, just kidding. I mean, like, from your perspective.
Best conference ever, for real. I gotta say it.
And why? And maybe describe it a bit so that people have an idea, and then we can also use that feedback in improving it further next year.
So I think everybody's dream as an investor is to be the fly on the wall of some of the best, say, hedge funds or the smartest thinkers. You want to get an idea of how people are coming to a conclusion of where to put their money. And what Swen has done is gathering these people in one room. And I think in New York there were 16 people, right?
Yep. 16 people who presented an idea.
Okay.
and we had 5 people sit in who we called the voyeurs, the people who were allocators, to use the industry expression, family offices or investors, who could just basically enjoy the show.
So those 16 people, all extremely successful, wealthy, and notable on their own, got to share their best investing idea. And for me as an investor, again, like I said, who would crave to be a fly on the wall and see the best thinkers do what they do, this was like just rapid fire, 16 different ideas from 16 different incredibly successful, smart people, and I got to see it there in real time. So I can't imagine a better format for someone looking for the next best idea or niche ideas that you would never think about. And all of these were publicly traded stocks as well, totally accessible to anybody. And I gotta say, the idea for the Weird Shit Investing Conference is, I mean, I have no doubt that this is gonna be a trend for a long time, but I think the demand going forward is gonna be really big because of people wanting to see these things before they really get popular. And also I'm gonna say, several of those ideas, since I saw it in New York several years ago, have ripped, right? I mean, gone up hundreds of %.
Yeah, in particular in the last couple of days, we featured a stock that it's basically a closed-ended fund with a lot of Russia exposure. And that's just gone up by a factor of like almost 3. And obviously back in the days, that was June, that was only 5 months ago. Getting Russia exposure seemed like a crazy idea, weird, if not shit. And you've outperformed pretty much everything else since then, maybe excluding Bitcoin. I don't know, I haven't followed that so closely. You have. Yeah, no, we're going to do this again, and there's a manual that came out of it with a summary of all of the ideas presented, and that's very much a feature of the event. We want everyone who's not attending, which is like 99.9% of my readers, to be able to look at these ideas as well. And in 2025, I'm probably going to do it in Hong Kong, London, and New York. So we're going from bicontinental to tricontinental. And watch this space, and if it sounds like you're interested in this, there's a website called weirdshitinvesting.com. Very easy, you can register your interest. I am very discriminatory with who we let in. It's all merit-based. So anyone who is relevant and interesting and has something to offer can come.
But you're going to tease this out. There may be a finale late next year, which will allow you to see what's happening in real time. And I think that announcement will come out in a couple months. I don't want to spoil it yet.
Yeah.
But let's just say there's an opportunity for everyone to see what's going on. But it's going to be announced soonish.
We've had a lot of interest in this. And if I wanted to make a joke, I'd say The Apprentice and Shark Tank was yesterday. Going forward, it's the weird shit investing gladiators in the arena, pitching their best investment ideas against each other.
Maybe we should do that, like pitch an investment and then you got to wrestle, or you like just tap out. Like, yeah, I like that.
We should talk about that.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Good, and I think we've covered it all.
Yeah, are you tired from walking in the sand yet?
No, but it's extremely pleasant being barefoot here in Florida. I could definitely get used to that, or at least do it more often.
Yeah.
Cody, thanks very much for your time.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a new format, and I wonder whether I should invest into a stick you've got here. And
for the viewers who are watching this, I apologize for the shakiness. My forearm is like super tired right now. But I'm going to do a little pano here so everyone sees where we're at. And I'm also going to show you right there. Oh, you can't really see it. It's like Mar-a-Lago, and that's where all the politicians are hanging out now. So
previously known as Mar-a-Lago, now called the White House.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Great. Cody, been a pleasure. Let's do this again. I hope our followers like this.
Yep. See you guys.
See ya.